So now what do I do? Well, I guess there's only one thing. There's something I'd like to know. Are you real? Can you feel?
Hi friends, welcome to my channel. I hope you guys are all doing well. If you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad you found me. For those of you guys returning, I'm so blessed to be here doing this reading for you guys. Today's reading is a little different than I usually make. I'm being called to do a collective reading using these decks right here. So I'll put a link to these decks for those of you guys interested in the cards in these decks, and it will straight up be a collective. So it's collective energy, but I'll be looking at shadow, and I'll be looking at light. So this could be something definitely going on in your own internal world, okay? But it's more intended to pick up the collective energy of what's going on around us. So I don't know where this is going. It could go political. It could go into celebrity. It could go into all sorts of ways, okay? So I'll put a link to the channeling. And like I said, I'll put a link to these decks, or a timestamp, I should say, to the channeling and a link to these decks so that you guys can take a look at what you need to. All right, and I will see you guys at the reading. All right, let's get into this reading. Interesting, the time, when I looked at the timer, it said 111. So interesting energy. Let's start with the shadow. So this way we can end up reading the light, or close the reading in the light. Okay, so the spirits, can we tap into the collective energy and take a look at what's going on collectively for the energy in which we're tapping into for today's reading? Clear and concise message for the greatest and highest good of the collective tapped into this reading. Please help me to channel the information. I'm seeing friends. It's saying friends, true friends. So friends turn to enemies. What's that about? A true fit? So I don't know if there's an energy here of maybe finding out who your true tribe is, and maybe we're going through the shadow of this, which could mean, you know, like experiencing betrayal or experiencing certain experiences with people who we might think are our friends. And now I'm seeing true fit. Yeah, it's like true fit. And now I'm seeing, this is an interesting energy, like a cross, okay, which could be symbolizing religion and the Christian religion specifically. But in the Lenormand, the cross can generally indicate like pain, suffering, and maybe even having faith in something here. So I like true faith. Okay, interesting. All that's true fits, true friends, true fit. Okay, so we have the Eight of Cups. And we have the Four of Cups in reverse. And we have the Two of Cups in reverse. Remember I said a true fit. So Two of Cups in reverse is like a not so good fit. It's like it's not reflecting back to us the same values. So the relationships, the partnerships, there's something about it not matching, having to walk away here, feeling not excited about our friends, or feeling rejected by the groups of people, or left out, or it's just not fitting. All right. And then we have the Queen of Wands, and she's in reverse here. Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So it's again like the Queen of Wands can symbolize the mask we wear. You know, the Queen of Wands puts on a personality to sort of charm. And she sort of says one thing or does one thing, and inside there's sort of a manipulative energy, like a masked self with the Queen of Wands in reverse. But then it also can symbolize the self that isn't seen or appreciated or valued. Okay, like the Queen of Wands, when she's in the light, she's very magnetic, very intellectual. She's able to utilize her own energy to create her own world. But in the reverse, it's like blaming her environment, others, and feeling sort of at the mercy of, again, her environment or others or her shortcomings, but not taking accountability or responsibility. So it could go either in a way of like being malicious, vindictive, blaming everyone and everything, rather than taking accountability for one's own involvement here. Okie dokie. And then we have the Six of Wands in reverse. Is that 6 or a 9? I think it's a 9. Hang on, sorry, I haven't used these cards in a minute. It's the 9 of Wands in reverse. So the 9 of Wands can talk about our own, oops, I'm gonna have to cover this up, our own strength, okay? It's like our own ability to fight through challenge and stand our ground, but sometimes we need to hide to protect ourselves or create a boundary to protect ourselves. It could be defensive to protect ourselves, but in the reverse, it could mean like giving up. It could mean like completely like retreating and not regarding ourselves in a position to fight or not having it within us to confront. So it's really like a surrender type energy here. And then we have the 6 of Cups. Yeah, sorry, 6s and 9s. Those screw me up here. Yeah, 6 of Cups. So this is like people, places, things of the past, or childhood friends, the way we were brought up, memories, the things I remember. The 6 of Cups can talk about past life relationships and friendships and nostalgia, memories, and even it can talk about reconciliations and giving from a place of innocence. So I'm getting collectively, there's a shift here of an awakening through a painful truth. And it feels to me like we're either on one side of the equation, which is very much in line with energy when we talk about polarity and duality here. So either we're in the light or we're in the shadow. And it seems to me like with this 2 of Cups, it's like either we're the ones in the ego, deceiving, blaming, shaming others, or projecting or judging. And of course, not taking accountability or responsibility, pretending, okay? Or we're on the other side here, which is an energy of having to be done dirty in a way to have a wake up, to sort of come back to our innocence, to remember what's true. And this will allow us to align better with better friendships. But it's going through a very sort of harsh reality, disappointment. And it's like we have to shed a part of ourself and surrender this version of us. Maybe it's our pride or what we think success looks like, or being validated looks like, or being treated in a certain way, what it means to us in a way that sort of surrenders this sort of concept to a more, let me go back to what actually speaks to my heart. And now it's tying me back to being desensitized, because collectively we're all desensitized, and I'll just use one example. Let's say, I'll use 2. Let's say movies or video games, okay? It's like video games always have this like dualistic nature. And it really is like me having to fight the outside world here to win. Okay, movies are very gory or like brutal. And like the more we sort of fall into the pattern of watching these things, it sort of numbs reality in a way. Okay, so we can call those rituals, because a ritual doesn't necessarily have to be a bad thing so much. Okay, but what we call satanic ritual. Okay, and I don't generally tap into this sort of the shadow sides. Okay, but I'm going to read it this way because I am looking at shadow. And I'm going to call satanic rituals. It's like numbing ourselves day in, day out with brutal stuff that doesn't feel good to the heart. It doesn't feel innocent. It's violent. It's betrayal. It's get them before they get me. And I must be victorious, or I must be winning at all costs in some way here. And so this numbing, or it's like really desensitizing us to the truths of the heart. And so this is why consciousness is very important, because when consciousness comes online, when the spiritual self has actually connected to and seen, it could be a very emotional process and overwhelming, because the truth of the heart knows. And this is why, as even a child, we know that lying feels bad, or hurting another feels bad, or taking something feels bad. No one has to tell us these things. But over time, we're programmed through the desensitization, and it's the powers that be over in the top that design this for a reason, for control. And so these satanic rituals, okay, these are desensitizing humanity in order to create a society of people who are unconscious and asleep in shadow, living in the false world, the false self, the numb self, beating each other and defeating each other. And so the great truth of God is not seen and connected to, which is really our innocent self. And so I feel like this whole collective experience here is one of having to be pushed to the point in which one individually will have to shed one's ego, or one's own pride, or one's own false self. And it's the self that blames other. And it's through a process of the world out there isn't reflecting harmony to me, or the people aren't honoring me, or showing me something out there that I was really thinking I would see in order to feel validated, or vindicated, or seen, or appreciated. And if I can't find it there, because it's our innate nature to be loved and want to give love and act through love, and when we're not experiencing this, we suffer. And we have no choice but to go wherever we need to find this thing, which means a surrendering process. Thrive. There's enough space for the moon and her stars not to tear each other down. So really, again, this is really talking about a dualistic sort of way to live. Okay, now everything is in duality in this universe, because that's how we create contrast, so that we know light from dark, heat from cold. Okay, so everything runs on a scale of polarity. There's no sort of exception. But love itself is purity and truth and clarity and a higher state of consciousness. And so when one operates from this level, one sees through the dualistic nature of separation. And again, it's like you versus me, or there being two sort of sides to something that is creating this thing we have to fight up against, because what you fight up against is sort of creating this, you're building it, you're strengthening it. Okay, it's like the resistance to something keeps it sort of there. It's almost like, let's say a tree is falling. If the tree is falling, it's just going to fall. But if there's something sort of holding it up with resistance, the tree keeps putting pressure on that thing. And so there's two sort of pressures. And so what you resist persists. And what you fight against, you strengthen. Meaning, if I infuse negative energy, if I'm having an argument with someone and they're arguing with me, and then I argue back with them, and then they argue, there's more argument on top of more argument. It's like the negative polarity infusing the negative still leaves it in the negative. And that's why to diffuse the negative, we have to infuse it with love and innocence. So the only way to get to truth and innocence is to see through the illusion of the ego and the mask. And so there's really shifting the environment. Okay, like having to leave friend groups, having to leave workplaces, having to really understand what makes us emotionally happy, and not from a place of confusion or ego or pride or a dualistic, and not to tear each other down. Because I do feel like everyone, obviously, collectively, is on a different stage of conscious awareness. And so there's this beating up of the collective that are all kind of maybe on different states of consciousness, but still a part of the same sort of, well, we're all part of the same team, but it's like when we see beyond the form, we know that we're just the one state of consciousness. And so I feel like to create this duality and this thing, that there's another person that is just a part of a different sort of grouping or in a different level. It's like, no, they're just you in another body form. And so that body form has its own mind, and it's just their mind that creates the different programming, the different thoughts, the different outcomes. But the consciousness behind it is the same as your consciousness. And so there really is no separate them. So to put them in a different camp or to separate them from our truth is not necessarily true. And it's definitely not putting them in our heart space here. I'm seeing a lot of clouds. And again, that's confusion. That's not really necessarily, okay, now I'm getting, because it's often described in the spiritual community as our consciousness being the sky here, because the sky is that which is not shifting or changing. It's the clouds through the sky, and the clouds are really the form. And so we could have rain clouds, we can have white fluffy clouds, we can have a bunch of clouds, we can have a few clouds, partly cloudy, and all these clouds are like the thoughts, and that's the veil, that's the form. And so our minds are these clouds, okay? And when we know that we're sort of the sky, that our light is ever changing here, that these clouds are forever shifting and changing. And that means we're seeing through that illusion and that confusion, because we have to really see through that mask and that understanding. Otherwise, we're thinking we're the cloud and we're chasing and following the cloud. And so as the cloud shifts, because if you stare at a cloud long enough, first it looks like a sausage, and then it looks like Santa Claus. And so that cloud is ever changing and shifting. So if we attach to the thought of that cloud being the real deal, it slowly morphs and changes. And then there's another cloud and another cloud and a different thought. And so this is what Spirit is talking about, like form, meaning people, bodies, experiences, things that are sort of taking place that aren't lasting. They will change form like the clouds. And so we cannot get hung up on the cloud itself, or we'll just end up being disappointed in the truth. And the truth is that we're the sky, where the clarity is, consistency is, and connecting to that sky energy, which means the one state of consciousness, it brings us back to our heart space, our innocence here. Okay, so that kind of made sense. Thank you, Spirit. Let's pull from this deck. I haven't, look at how wobbly these cards are. It really bothers me. I only have one other deck that's wobbly like this, and it's the I gotta tell you, because if you're a tarot reader, you probably have the same issue I have. Maybe not. Which one is it? The oh boy, why am I so obsessed finding it? What is it called, Spirit? Here it is. The Divine. The Tarot of the Divine. Wobbly. Like this. So, I don't know. I haven't used these cards, like I said. So, it's been sitting there, you know, and maybe it's just the cardstock. It feels almost like vinyl. Anyway, lots of detail. Let's take a look. So, this deck is the Angel Tarot. So, I also have like the light version of this tarot deck, which we'll also use, but I do want to use the Angel Tarot to see what's going on collectively here that we need to be aware of collectively, Spirit. I don't know how to pronounce a lot of these angel words. Heal, heal. I don't know. I'll let you guys say it. It's Four of Swords. Healing. The God of Trinity. Mission. Protects against slander and impious people. I don't know what impious is, but I would imagine protects us against slander and those types of people. It means the good is protected. Okay, the good. The light. The light is protected because what is true could never be distorted. In reality, the truth remains. The distortion can happen in front of it. It could try to create a diversion. The negative polarity can do whatever it does, but the truth will remain solid in itself. And so it's saying that God, source, spirit, the angels, okay, are protecting this truth because the truth itself is this is clarity, is honesty, is love, okay, is this innocence. And so mission here of the light, anyone who is a light keeper, somebody who is here to really stand in their mission here of healing the collective is protected by the divine here. Okay, but we see this tiger, this lion, which is talking about having strength and courage, and also knowing when not to have to battle, because the strength card is knowing when we have to sort of reserve ourselves and not give in to the ego, you know, because everyone could be victim to an ego because the ego is never fully removed. We're either conscious of it, oh, I'm an ego right now, I got lost in the clouds in the story, or I rise above it and I see through the truth of it. And so Spirit is saying when we're not in the ego, when we are conscious to see through the egos, then we're protected. And this takes a lot of courage, okay? And it also allows us to see clearly when to act, because we'll be guided from the heart, and the heart never makes mistakes. The heart always acts in pure truth. It's only when we're in ego and shadow do we ever act and support untruths. And so this need to face certain things when we are called to do so must be out of a clarity. And when we're asked to not have to get involved, okay, now this doesn't mean allow the shadow and the satanic rituals to overtake a collective, but what this does mean is to know when to pick the battles, and when we are asked to face what we need to be courageous to speak the truth, we are divinely protected. And so we all have our mission. Okay, some people have a mission to bring collective couples together. Okay, like healing the collective when it comes to love and relationship. And some people's mission is to reveal the light on the dark state and the shadows that are going on. And so a lot is happening there, being revealed to us collectively in regards to the deep state and the satanic rituals. Okay, I'm using strong words here, but exactly what it is, because it's the shadow that is numbing the collective to keep the collective asleep so that it can gain power over us. Corporations, government figures, okay? And really this is coming to light when it starts to build upon stronger and stronger egregious behavior that involves children and animals and sacrifices and this sort of stuff. Okay, so it goes very, very deep here, but the Four of Swords is a healing. And so we're bringing back balance and healing to a collective that's so far gone down the satanic rituals. Okay, another example coming through is just like free porn here, you know, and giving away our sexual energy and not even thinking twice about this, and free, maybe easy food, gluttony. And so that's another sort of God in the stomach. Okay, but that God is like an evil sort of, well, we won't even call it a God, but like another deity within us that's gluttonous, that isn't really sort of rising above what it's doing there. Okay, like at the expense of other. It could be at the expense of an animal. It could be at the expense of whatever it is here. Okay, so there's a lot of ways that these numbing things have overtaken society. It's very disturbing here. Okay, but a lot is sort of coming out in regards to who is a part of the shadow. So let's see, Spirit, what else do we need to know about collective energy going on? So we have Hahasea. Interesting, Hahasea. So we had 41 and now we have 51. God, the impenetrable secret, universal medicine, elevation of the soul, and the revelation of mysteries. So all will be revealed here. Universal medicine. So the universal medicine, truth, love. Okay, that's universal. It doesn't matter what language or religion or what sort of background you have. Everyone, it can be exposed to feeling love and knows what the love feels like. Okay, so there's universal medicine that's coming back online, I feel, from a place maybe that we were numb to. It's because there might be a lot of people that don't really know what love is, don't really know what truth is, don't really know what caring for other is. Okay, so the elevation of the soul is the ascension here into truth. So we have temperance, 2 healing cards here. Chua Kua. Chua Kia. I don't know. The God of joy. Reconciliation. Remember I said this card could be a card of reconciliation. Regains the favor of those who have offended. Who has offended. Okay, very clear here. Very clear here, okay? This is very challenging for a lot of people. We're dealing with monsters when we talk about people in shadow, because it is very scary. Okay, like who are abusing children and all of the things we're hearing on the Epstein files and everything that is going on collectively. It's so egregious. Okay, and so it's very difficult for us to have courage of strength to what? To have to be able to stand in truth and not let the ego get in the way of sitting in a vibration of love and compassion. Now, we don't have to love the act that that person did. Absolutely not. Okay, it's shadow. It's distorted. But there is a vibration to be held of love. And those who have offended have to be seen through their shadowy ways in order for us to really understand and get through this point in time. Because if we see them as a separate entity, separate from me, it creates this big cloud, the super darkness, and then it's God versus the devil, and it's this big battle, and that's the tear each other down. There's only one state of consciousness, one God, one truth, one love. There's not 2 powers, there's not 2 entities. Okay, and so this is misunderstanding, even in the Bible here, that there's this separate entity that has as much power of God called the devil. Whereas the devil takes 75% of God's children and puts it in purgatory, and then God loses that game. No, that doesn't happen. Okay, so we're all a part of this divine creation, and we all have our archetype to play. And so when these things get revealed, the shadow, the darkness, Although it is painful, although it is scary, although it is very real in the sense that we're experiencing it in 3D, truer than that is the divine light behind, which cannot be tainted. And so we're needing to see through the shadow, the ego, as exactly that. It is the shadow, the distortion, the ones who are seeking power. Okay, and so there is a unity that's coming back online. And I don't feel it is, let's just forgive the molesters, let's just forgive, okay, in that sort of regard. But it is one of a higher level of love from the heart space of being that change we wish to see and holding that vibration of kindness and shifting the energy, and that which is evil will fall away, and shining the light on that which is dark and distorted. It takes a lot of courage to speak up against all of this stuff that's going on collectively, but not from a place of ego itself. Okay? Because I do feel like there is this massive shift here that is happening in order for the collective to wake up. Like I said, this was to surrender, to be slighted by another here. And it could be at a very basic sort of level, or intimate level, I should say, base level, by a friend, by a lover, by a relationship, by our society. Okay, but on a grand scale, it's like the light and the dark, and they're not harmonious. And so we could mean well, but we start to get into these battles. You know, they're evil. Let's imprison them all. Let's put them on an island on their own. Let's create this division and this separation. Whereas really, in order for one to get to that state of vibration, they must have gone through a lot of distorted experiences, from like addictions and upbringing of like abuse and power, just really, really not being able to see through their own ego, because they've been brought up in an energy of being programmed to this energy. Okay, but nobody really controls where they're born, meaning if we were born into their shoes, we'd most likely be, it is not even most likely, we would be exactly in their place, because everyone's experience is sort of forming exactly who they are today. And so there's this understanding that comes online. I won't accept the fact that this behavior is acceptable in any way, but I can understand it happening from this regard, why it's happened, and what I can do about this thing, so we don't have to feel helpless. And that's where we're being guided. I'm going to pull one more of these, okay, and then we'll pull this deck right here. So let's see, Spirit, what else does the collective need to know about this energy that's being pulled on here collectively? So as we can see, it's pretty much the same messaging I give on a one-on-one sort of scale when we're dealing with relationships and we feel betrayed or let down here. It's rising above the experience in order for there to be a higher vibration here, which could mean like detaching ourselves from blame and judgment and this sort of a thing, but seeing the truth as it is and as it stands. All right, interesting energy. Eaziel, the Page of Cups. God who rejoices, divine comfort, gives consolation and protection from one's enemies. Again, with this enemy and protection. So if you're in light, meaning if you're not in ego, if you're not in the believing you're the form and the distortion, then you're protected here by the divine, and you're protected from the opposite polarity here, okay? So nobody can harm the truth. Or they could try all they want, they could distort the truth, but that's not necessarily going to win when it comes to endgame. All right, and there's way more of us than there are of people here that are right at the top creating these satanic rituals and these shadowy controlled environments for the collective. Okay, I know there's a lot of people who are asleep, and so this is why this whole shift might be really talking about the surrender and the falling of the ego, because there's only a certain percent that see through this illusion, and the bulk of people still asleep and still sort of stuck in the matrix. Okay, but to this duality and this seeing enemies, a way of existing, is sort of creating more division here. Okay, so let's see. Spirit. Oh my goodness, we have a card that's in here from another deck. Interesting. What is this? Presence. You're being asked to spend more time in the present moment, to stop ruminating about the past or longing for the future. Your life is happening right now. And when you're not present for it, you will miss all its beauty. Exactly. So presence means what? Being awakened to the right here, right now, to the reality of a situation. So if we're anticipating and we're fearing what might happen, how something may go, the worst case scenarios, are going to be overtaken by these satanic people and these corrupt systems, and there's no way out. And we start sort of living like that's the reality that we're headed to. It's anticipating. Okay, and if we're too stuck in past, but still in the clouds, and it's like the past experience, and now I'm bitter about seeing this truth. The reality is that there are pedophiles. The reality is that there are people who are very power hungry and nothing even to do of money, more so it is power. Okay, who might really stop at nothing here. And of course, some people are money hungry because money generally dictates how much power one has, but it's very distorted here. And so how can we defeat this? Being present in the now and seeing through the illusion of the ego and other people's. But we have to see through our own ego in order to see the other. We have to see our own shadow, and we have to be able to, like I said, know what battles to fight and not to get into arguments with strangers on the internet like my twin does. All right, so let's take a look at what Spirit wants to communicate here for the light. Although we do have a lot of light angel energy here. Temperance. So temperance is healing, and we had temperance here as well, didn't we? Temperance. So this temperance is feeding this baby. Okay, so what does feeding the baby mean? It means those who are capable and know more and are in a greater position can help those who can't fend for themselves, or, you know, but this person's giving them food. This person needs food to survive. So the people with the light, the people that know more, are really bringing this healing to the collective, to those who, you know, are still childlike, maybe in their development, in their spiritual development, to help them. Especially when we're rapidly sort of being dealt these very twisted ways. You know, there's could be a lot of people who don't know how to manage this shift in the collective that's very depressing, very dark, very could be very fearful, of course, if we get lost in the clouds. Okay, so healing, balance, divine guidance, protection from slander, evil, satanic people, people in shadow, people in ego. Okay, I'm also seeing the twins here. So if you are on a twin flame journey, there could be a need to listen to divine guidance regarding helping these twins, to feed them. Okay, like feed them from the divine source. And nutrients is what? Is truth, is love, is compassion, forgiveness, gratitude, and all the stuff that the divine feeds, because the divine doesn't give us any lies and darkness in order to nurture us. And so we could have some infants here, you know, infants or children, when it comes to really seeing a greater truth or seeing with the eyes of God, in order to really be in a healthy state, in order to stand up. Because I do feel like twin flames could be in a position of really shining the light, okay, like shining the light of awareness on the corruption and being examples to collective here. Okay, so this could be a process that's happening, a journey that's happening. And you could be one on either side here, but it's masculine and feminine. And then the next card we have here the Four of Pentacles. So Four of Pentacles could be the materialistic card, the card where we're holding on to the world we know, not wanting to risk something here, but in the light, which we are asking about, it's getting very grounded and stable. Okay, because Four legs are very strong when it comes to the foundation of something. Four Pentacles is very balanced and grounded in the 3D. So there's a need to get rooted, grounded, solid, not be out in the 5D ethers. Okay, just dreaming about the divine and spirit as a faraway entity. But how do we bring it to the 3D? How do we get grounded? How do we get solid and stable? Because the real healing here for the collective on Earth is happening in the 3D. And so we must bring spirit down to the 3D. Okay, but we have to get regulated and balanced and grounded. We can't be floating around like the clouds. All right, so Four Pentacles, and what else, Spirit, in regards to the light energy for the collective? We have the Seven of Swords in the reverse, righting wrongs, the thief returning the swords. This is also the false self falling away, the mask falling away, because Seven Swords is, again, one strategizing for oneself. It's me versus the world, and so the thief goes and steals everyone's swords, strategizing, planning for themselves, okay, self-serving, not thinking of anyone else, and even just lying, stealing, cheating. Okay, but in the reverse, it's like a willingness to see the truth, a willingness to put down what's fake, or to call out what's fake, or to put down the ego, or see through the ego in order to make change. And this definitely feels like it is what's happening here, okay, in order to get more grounded and balanced and not emotionally sort of all over the place, because the ego would keep us completely sort of unregulated here, okay? So we have the Empress, beautiful. So Empress is the epitome of all that's love, abundance, compassion, okay? And in a lot of past literature, the Divine Empress has been removed and wiped away. Feminine energy has been painted as a negative, okay, has been suppressed. And so there's a need to allow the Divine Feminine to come online from a true place, because there has been a lot of suppression regarding powerful Divine Feminines in history. Okay, like Mary Magdalene being painted like a prostitute, and like she wasn't in a relationship here with Jesus. Meanwhile, she was there everywhere he went. And so back in that time, a woman like this, beside a man like that, there's no doubt in my mind that she was his wife, and that most women are more tuned into their spiritual nature. And Jesus, very spiritual, very connected to the divine. And so this Mary Magdalene energy is coming through here. This Divine Feminine, which is really all about the love and compassion. Okay, because this is where we're really being called. Like I said, the innocence of the heart only knows love and compassion, forgiveness, kindness, generosity, and healing. It's nurturing. It's feminine. It's not trying to force through fighting and through, again, resistance and battles. Okay, love infused in shadow diffuses the shadow, diffuses the negative polarity. And this is why when there's evil entities, okay, if you believe in the evil entities, or you're being plagued by shadow entities, if you feel love, if you feel gratitude, you smile, those entities go away. The evil entities do not like the light. They do not like love. The only way to defeat it is with love. Okay, Taurus, Libra energy. And then we have the Seven of Cups in reverse. These are the clouds energy I was talking about. Okay, because Seven Cups could really be lost in the fantasy and the clouds and the 5D. So we could really not have a good understanding of polarity and energy. so much so that we could believe in a fantasy, you know, like the devil and these evil shadows that are other separate entities that I got to fight. And this is all 7 cups type stuff. And so we're becoming, as we become clear, as we get out of the clouds, we start to get more grounded in the 3D. And the 3D grounded self can understand how energy works and can come and bring love here to the 3D plane with an open heart without getting lost. Okay, getting lost in this whole 7 cup energy, because the 7 cups is again this ritualistic shadow thing. Okay, I called it the satanic ritual because rituals could be like brushing your teeth, brushing your hair. That's a ritual. You do it every day. You call your mother every day. Nothing satanic about that ritual. But the ones that we do every day, like we play the game every day, we watch horror movies every day, and they get more gruesome, and it numbs us, and it makes it so that when we're experiencing these things, we're numb to it. We don't see it right away. We're desensitized. We're programmed. And this is allowing others to give power over us, because someone who is unconscious, who's in the matrix, who is not conscious and aware, who is not in their heart space, doesn't see the truth, can't bring the truth here to the 3D, because this is more threatening to the shadow, is the light and the love. So we have to see through their own clouds, okay? We own unconscious. We have to become very conscious. So what else, Spirit, are we seeing here in the light? So since this is the light, I'm assuming this is exactly how we're defeating the negative polarities, you know, or how the light is sort of manifesting truth and love here on earth, getting out of the clouds, getting out of anything that's keeping us confused or numb, through love and through real practical ways. And this is really being of service, because in a practical way, how do you show love? You got to give love. You got to be of service. You can't just say, I'm spiritual, I'm loving, and then go to the grocery store and argue with everybody there and pass 10 million homeless people on your way there and just step over them like they don't exist. Well, that's not very much happening in the 3D. So how can I in the 3D give love and be conscious and present in order to get out of this matrixy cloud here, okay? So we have the 9 of Cups. So 9 Cups is emotional fulfillment. Look at this white angel hugging all of these people over here. Oh my gosh, totally getting it, you know? Because like I said, it's like we represent the divine. We represent God here on earth, okay? And so when we shine our light, like I said, and light can only come from heart, from truth. And so my light comes from my heart, my truth, and my acts of service. And now I act like this beacon of light. And really, it's like angel on earth, okay, through your vessel, of course, spirit acting through you, allows anyone here who might be lost, who isn't in the light, who might not understand that they're being pulled to the negative polarity, because they're not quite shadows. Because if they were negative polarity by choice, by consciousness, okay, because a lot of these powerful people understand how energy works. They're very aware of consciousness, and they're choosing to keep people numb and asleep so that they can be more powerful. That's a choice. They're not dumb, okay? And so when we become conscious and awake, we can help those that are still asleep, who could be swept up by the shadow, because the shadow loves the fear. And they love to keep you suppressed so that you could buy what they're selling. It's like, I'll keep you in fear and then I'll sell you the solution that you need. And so since you're at this channel, I am very blessed here to have you. I do feel you're a beacon of light here. And you're bringing divine light to situations in order for there to be healing and in order for there to be guidance of those lost souls. I say lost because we really need to sort of pick a side, because nothing worse than the ones that are just going to drown in the middle. So at least the negative polarity has chosen consciously to choose to a service path for themselves. And then the light polarity is choosing a life of service to others. And so that's all really negative polarity is. You know, it's like service to self. I'm going to slight other. It's all about me. I need to win at all costs. I need to steal, rob, cheat, however it is to get what I want and need. And I give in to the ego, lusty ways, okay, or the 7 deadly sins here. And those are the gods that I honor every time that I choose a choice in line with that. I'm not in line with the greater good. And the greater good here is of love. The greater good here is service to other, being compassionate and open and forgiving and kind. All right, so this is how we overcome. Now let's take a look at this final deck here and wrap up with a message from Spirit regarding this collective journey we're on. Spirit, thank you so much for this message. We're seeing Page of Cups for a second time. This fell in my lap. So we saw Page of Cups here, but this Page of Cups had a sword. Okay, and so swords could represent the mind. They could represent what we say and do. Could represent truth and clarity. The sword was sort of sideways, but the cups is all about our feelings, and page is the innocence. Okay, it's the child self. It's the early stages opening the heart space. And so here we have the Page of Cups with the actual cup. Now this is in the shadow. I feel like Spirit is really talking about the beginning stages to get into enlightenment is only through the heart. Having childlike wonder. This is the only way, okay? And so if we're in the shadow in the hearts, there's no way that we're able to come up against whatever is coming up against us, okay? So, yeah, look, coming up against us, here's the 5 of Wands. So being challenged, 5 of Wands in the shadow, being challenged by, like I said, and we could see this challenge is like tearing each other down. There's enough space for the moon and her stars not to tear each other down. But here's like verses. I'm going to battle. I'm going to fight. I'm going to, create a war here when I'm in the shadow of the heart. But when I'm in my heart space, and when I know of true love and compassion, when I know of that because I've connected to it through my innocence, then I don't have to fight that in which is dark. I know how to infuse it with love. And so I'm not creating war and violence here. I don't have to compete, but this is how we win against this oppressive sort of energy that might be all around us. Okay, it might be tainting our hearts, might be it is, because I feel like over time, like I said, that satanic ritual thing was really coming through. And it's like when we're born and we're babies, we don't carry any sort of malintent or any sort of programming that makes us have to defend ourselves and see that the world is evil. That's taught to us through experience. And then we develop this sort of closed heart, and we can dress it up as discernment or protection or whatever we want to sort of say here, because unless it's true discernment, unless it's true protection. And so that's the thing, is like, is it protection? Is it discernment? Or is it something we're calling discernment and protection? To know the difference. And so if it feels oppressive, if it feels challenging and conflicted, it's not from the heart, because the heart, again, like I said, only knows love and compassion and truth and forgiveness. It doesn't judge. It doesn't push away. And it calls out truth, and it could use its words, okay, in a way that will allow there to be healing, but not in a way that allows there to be more suffering or challenge or confrontation. 5 Pentacles in the shadow. Scarcity, separation, consciousness, and look at these 5s, okay? So collectively, we're really at this pivotal shift, and we're seeing that all over the internet, unless you're under a rock here, okay? Even on YouTube, there's lots about this 2026 being a pivotal year here, much change, and so change comes a lot of strife and challenge, and we're really being confronted in our own personal lives. Like I said, maybe people are not showing us their value, or they're acting shady, or they're disrespecting us, or they're doing whatever they're doing here, because I feel like this is a wake-up call. A change is happening here, a massive change, in order for us to see the truth and get out of lack and scarcity and dualistic thinking and separation consciousness. Otherwise, we're just in lack. And we'll believe in the lack story. And that's not the nature of the divine universe. Divine universe is not lack. Okay, 55 is a master number. Change is the only constant, divinely orchestrated change. And so it was coming through is be the change you wish to see. And what we want to see is more love and compassion, forgiveness. We don't want to see war and violence. So why would we combat it with more war and violence? But why would we infuse judgments and of other? Okay, because we can only really engage in our current environment. And so as we treat other who we feel backstabbed by or threatened by or betrayed by is an indicator of what we're energetically, collectively putting into the universe. So we have to get out of scarcity. We have to see the truth for what it is here. Yeah, hangman, we got to change your perspective. Okay, we have the hangman in the shadow. Shadow, 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 shadow. So collectively, I do feel there's still a lot of people that are still asleep in the shadow, okay? I don't feel like they're negatively polarized because I feel like in order to be negatively polarized, we have to consciously choose the path to self. Okay, and so, of course, if we're in the ego, it's sort of unconscious and we might be asleep, and it's change your perspective, see the great truth, and we might have to change exactly the opposite of how we're thinking in order to make different changes. Okay, and this is like sitting with the divine until we finally see a truth, you know, like really rising above and connecting to the divine to say, okay, I could finally understand something different than before, and then be able to come back and implement what we've learned and seen through divine enlightenment, divine enlightenment, okay? But we might be very hesitant here and like, how would I engage? And it's really just to stand your truth, not to combat or add to the war or add to the fight or add to the conflict or believe in the story of lack. And there's the beautiful sun, okay? But in the shadow, because again, this replenish, the sun will rise and we will try again. Interesting how that fell right in the sun. I had to cover that up because there's a little kid on there. And so in the shadow, the sun is still extremely positive, okay? Because the sun is the sun, regardless if it's in the reverse in the sky, it's always sort of shining bright, okay? But the shadow aspect of the sun, it could be that we're not seeing clearly just yet, and that there's delayed seeing, delayed understanding. Okay, could be consumed by the ego, and that in a later time we'll finally see and joy will come back, the sun will rise. But right now we're in darker periods, and look at all these sunflowers are sort of pointing away from the sun. Oops. So yeah, and I'm also just really being drawn back to like child, what's it called? Trafficking, you know? It's like these are very dark times here. But the spirit keeps bringing us back to we will try again. Meaning what? Meaning this life is just a blip. The forms that are coming in and out of existence, we are born and then we die in form. But our light energy is there forever. And so we get to grow in this journey. We get to see our true nature throughout a process of experience. And that's why a lot of like NDEs or near-death experiences will talk about at the end of their life. They're not asked what religion they were. What they see is their life flashing before them. And they get asked whether they wanted to come back and make things right. And they are the judge and they see how they've behaved or how they engaged. Okay, that's very common with the NDEs. It's like I was taken to a place that felt very warm and safe in order for me to see the life that I lived. And was I of service to self or service to other? And so we have this try again energy because it's up to us to make the change and not to be asleep or in the dark. But we have to be conscious and see the truth. Otherwise, we're in the shadow, in the dark. And it's like, we don't want to have to come to suffer again and again. We've suffered enough. So to come out of scarcity, to come out of lack, to come into the sunlight, we have to see the truth. And the truth is love. And the truth is that there is no separation. Nine of Cups. And it is on top of the Nine of Cups. So very significant. Emotional happiness, attaining one's wish. And the only way really for us to personally be emotionally happy is for us to fill our own cup. We're not relying on other. It's like our own energy, our own fulfillment comes from a generated energy from within. Okay, but I don't feel like this is, yeah, like what I'm really seeing here is this is in the shadow. And so it could be saying, if we're on a path to service to self, then we're not any different than the people that we're demonizing, the pedophiles, okay? Well, yes, the acts might not be as egregious, but when we're more concerned with our own world at the expense of other, then it just monopolizes and gets and expands and extrapolates onto everything in the collective. And so if we're this way, of course, others going to be exactly this way too. So we got to be the change we wish to see. And it's like, if I'm not concerned with my own emotional happiness, then I'm willing to steal, rob, cheat, and then feel this separation, me versus them, then I'm just perpetuating this sort of belief here collectively, because we're all a part of this collective. And so Spirit is saying, shift how we see this. See the sun, work with me, become enlightened, and know that your emotional happiness doesn't ride on selfishness and overindulgence here. Okay, and I feel this is gluttonous too. Nine of Cups in reverse. So people over drinking and over partying, and feed them breads and circuses and they will be distracted. And that's exactly what I feel is happening. It's like, you know, getting lost in the Super Bowls and getting lost in the celebrityism and getting lost. It's like, sure, you can partake and see these things, but seeing through and through the ritualistic brainwashing that's happening, that's what Spirit is talking about here, seeing through it, not giving into it and consuming ourselves. We get lost in the clouds, lost in the drink, you know, lost in the sex, drugs, rock and roll, or whatever it is that you're gluttonous about, because we all have the thing that we're sort of attaching to as their emotional happiness. And over consuming with anything can get us lost in our own selves. It's like, am I considering other? Because we're creating our own suffering here. If we maintain the service to self energy, it just keeps perpetuating. And it's like a beast you can't feed. It goes on and on and on. Okay, and so now I'm seeing, it's like a ring of fire. I don't know what it's symbolizing. And I'm seeing it in this crystal ball here. And it's almost like, oh yeah, it's like an eye. It's turning into an eyeball. And it's one eye, and it's the seeing eye. And so we know that a lot of these secret societies, they use the seeing eye, you know, like the Illuminati and all this, because they know the truth of the seeing eye. The seeing eye is one state of consciousness. There's no duality. There's no separation. There's just one source of power, and we are all one. And so this one eye that I'm seeing here is like observing, and it's neutral, because the observer has been there since birth. It wasn't making judgment, and it is with you, and you can connect to that energy at all times. Okay, but as we live our life, we start to develop beliefs and identities and programs, and then we attach to that as being our identity. And now we're no longer connected to the truth of that eye. So that eye is really the third eye, you know, the one eye of consciousness here. And I feel like Spirit's talking about being in the present moment, observing with the neutral eye. Helps us to see the truth of what's going on here, because you'll see through the egos and the shadows and the truth of what's actually happening, and that there is no separation. And now I'm seeing a dragon, which would be that ring of fire. And this eye is looking like a dragon's eye. So I don't know what the dragon's eye symbolizes. And now I'm seeing a cobra. Okay, so I know snakes and dragons have scales. So snakes do talk about healing and symbolism, but snakes can have a very shadowy sort of connotation because the snake could represent the ego, it really represents where in the Bible there where the snake was trying to deceive. And really consciousness had a choice. And so the ego can deceive. We could be tricked by the snake. And so it's talking about this. And I'm seeing, I don't know, I'm seeing a Ninja Turtle. That's weird. Specifically, I'm seeing Leonardo because I'm seeing the blue Ninja Turtle. And so Leonardo had the sword. Didn't he? Because this one has a sword. Yes. And so the sword can represent truth. And I feel like sometimes we might think that the sword represents bloodshed. And so there is no need for bloodshed, That is what the satanic ritual would want you to believe. And so before even let's say even Christianity, there was paganism and the bloodshed and animal sacrifice and all of this. This is very satanic when it comes to shedding blood. It has nothing to do with divine. Divine does not need bloodshed. And so this is coming through as like the truth that you yield. It must be in line with divine truth and not with violence. It is with honesty, clarity, and love and compassion, but it's what we say and do, and it drives how we think. Or the thoughts drive what we say and do, but it's also what we think that we have to be very conscious of and mindful of as it comes through. And it's like, well, where's this thought? How's this thought driving me? Because the thoughts are going to continuously appear. And whether we feed that thought with energy is up to us, whether we're conscious of what that thought means. And so turtle, snake, and dragon just seem prehistoric here. Well, I mean, I know it's the Ninja Turtle, but it's like very old energy that comes through with those animals, Turtle also talks about the protection here and the longevity. And the turtle, I don't know what folklore it was, but it was like they were so large that they provided protection for a certain community where they got, I think, a devastation in their land, and they had nowhere to settle, as like the turtle provided the land for the people. So it feels to me like there's this energy of Mother Earth coming through when we need support and protection through whatever means, There it was giant turtle, whatever that's symbolizing there. Okay, but it's like a place to have peace on earth and a safe place to practice divinity. If you are of light, you are protected. You will bring this sort of stability to the 3D world here. Okay, so you are being seen by the divine mother here. Is there anything else, Spirit? I'm seeing sunglasses. And these sunglasses, they look like rainbow lenses. Okay, so now I'm getting perception, because the rainbow to me is all the various shades of the rainbow, and so we can have various perceptions. Okay, and so in order for us to really understand where other might come from, we have to be able to see other perceptions. Doesn't mean we agree with them at all times, but to be able to see and understand perceptions, because the sunglasses could really symbolize we're maybe not seeing necessarily clearly what the truth is, and that the truth can be distorted, and we could be using it in many different ways. in that rainbow. And so this is why this hangman and this perception came through. Where did it? I thought I read one of perception. Weird. I swear I thought there was one of perception. Maybe I just channeled it. But it is coming through very strong, because it's really, how are we choosing to see the universe? And are we aware of our own glasses that we're putting on in our own perception? Wow, now I'm really seeing it's like I still see the ring of fire, okay, but I'm seeing like two really big bright circles. One is red and one is blue. Okay, and sometimes the twin flames are symbolized by the red and the blue. Okay, and we can have fire and water. So it looks like they're merging right now together. Okay, and the blue, oh my goodness, the blue has rainbow inside of it, and almost like a sun inside of it, so it's looking masculine. And the red is like radiating this orange red light from within, and they're sort of merging here. And it feels almost like the orange or the red is monopolizing. Like everything looks like it's going ablaze right now. Okay, and the blue seems very consistent here. Very interesting energy. I'm not quite sure what it's meaning, and sometimes when I watch back my reading, it's sort of, I get more downloads. So if it does come to me as to what this is trying to tell me, then I can communicate it. But yeah, it seems very significant, because what I'm seeing, like I said, is this, the orange ball of fire kind of overtook the whole monopoly of the whole sort of screen, if you will, of what I was seeing. But the blue ball is very consistent with the rainbow energy and the sunlight within it. So I'm going to just zoom out of this, because sometimes it kind of trips me up. Woo. Okay, so collective, this is your reading. I hope you guys found this useful, and I might do more of these as we sort of go, because I did learn a lot from this thing, and I want to watch it back, because I don't really ever remember much of what I channel until I watch it back. So beautiful angels, thank you for being here. I'd like to thank your higher selves and your spirit team, my spirit guides, and of course, Spirit, for this act of divination. Thank you so much, Spirit. Thank you so much to the collective that have joined me for this video, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.